Similar to many iconic characters, like Harry Potter and like Cinderella.
They're all born in England. They're all British.
Do you want to do full English or?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, okay. Do you know how I got to reading Jane Eyre? Have I told you before?
Yeah, I think so.
How? How did I discover? Like, how did I discover the book? Something like that. Like, I know you know that I've read it. You know that it's my favorite book.
Well, it's a hard one.
Have you ever read a classic novel before? Great Expectations, the old books and novels, Little Women, The Great Gatsby.
No.
Even back in like uni, you didn't cover any. Because I
I was
remember.
doing science.
No, still, didn't you have like general subjects, literature, or? Because in high school, I think we covered, for example, like Beowulf.
Wait, I did break.
When you were back in high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
We did How to Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh yeah, that one, yeah. Do you remember what it was about?
So long.
Yeah, it was quite a long time ago. Even this one, I think Jane Eyre. It's been a long time since I've read it, but yeah, going back to how I came across it. So remember, I was working part-time as an English tutor to Japanese students.
Yeah.
So it was actually one of my students who recommended the book to me. And he was a 70-year-old Japanese harabochi. Oh no, the harabochi is Korean. What is oji-san? Oji-san, and I think he's still working at that time. And it was so funny because he wasn't really that fluent in English.
Yeah.
But he recommended this classic to me, so I was actually wondering how he managed to understand the book.
Maybe he can read.
Oh, that's true.
He just can't
Really
speak.
speak. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, maybe. So anyway, yeah, he recommended it, and
Or maybe there's a Japanese version of the book.
Actually, I was thinking the same, or watching the movie. He recommended it to me, and then I read it, and it was the first classic that I read, and I loved it. Because I think at that point, I've read Harry Potter, obviously, and then Hunger Games, those young adult novels.
Twilight.
Have I read it? I can't remember if
Did you not?
I feel like I did. Maybe I did, because that was, like the trend back then. Yeah, Divergent as well. Divergent, the series. So I've read all those. This was the first classic. So do you have any idea what Jane Eyre is all about? Jane Eyre follows the life of Jane.
Who would have thought?
It follows her life from the tender age of 10 until she grew up into an adult. So it was quite a long book actually, and the setting was in northern England between the 1700s and the 1800s.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that time period?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when the first landings were here in Australia.
Did you check it?
No,
Did you Google it? No?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Probably around that time period. Maybe. I think so.
Yeah, I just asked, but nothing relevant to
It's just
yeah.
everything. They're like the center of the world, so like England at that.
Oh, at the time.
I feel like. I mean, there's such like a.
What happened in the Philippines at that time?
Just under Spanish occupation.
The 1700s and then in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So similar to many iconic characters, like Harry Potter and like Cinderella.
They're all born in England. They're all British. I don't think Cinderella is British.
They were orphans. She was an orphan like Harry and Cinderella. Yeah, so we're only going to do chapter 1 for this video, and then we'll see if we'll be able to do the rest of the chapters. I'm not sure actually how many chapters there is in the book. Let me just quickly have a look how many chapters there are for Jane Eyre. I'm panicking. Oh my gosh, it's in Roman numerals. How many chapters is XXXVII? 38. Yeah, gotta do this for 38 weeks.
Sure.
Chapter 1. The story opens on a rainy November day. I'm not sure if it was day or evening, at Gateshead Hall. So that's what they call their house, Gateshead Hall. What do we call our house?
Is that an orphanage?
No. Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, she was an orphan, but she has a benefactress.
Okay.
So she's living with relatives. She is living with her aunt. Her uncle is the brother of her mom. So her mom's family is quite rich, but her mom married her father, who was kind of poor. Like, she was kicked out of the family because she married poor. And
So happens today.
big, wealthy,
Yeah.
influential families. She's living now with her aunt. She's the benefactress, and her uncle is already has passed away.
Yeah.
She has 3 cousins, Georgiana, Eliza, and John. So 2 girls and 1 boy. The chapter opens with the family in the drawing room. They have so many rooms in this big mansions. And then they were just hanging out there. The mom was there, and then she was surrounded by her 3 children. But Jane is not allowed to be in the same room until Bessie's kind of like the nurse, until Bessie has confirmed that she is a perfect little angel child.
Yeah.
Because Jane is quite feisty. She's quite assertive. When Jane asks what she's done to wear this type of punishment, Mrs. Reed just tells her,
Don't ask questions.
just sit somewhere there and stay quiet until you know how to. So at this point you can see, how much love there is between Jane and her adoptive benefactress. Her benefactress, not.
Still be family, right?
Yeah, it should be, yeah, right?
Was JK inspired by?
Actually, I was gonna mention there's a lot of
Fun.
parallels as well. So JK was inspired by Lord of the Rings and Jane Eyre. She was sent into the adjoined breakfast room, and that breakfast room had a library. So like you wouldn't have a mansion if you don't have not library, sorry, like a bookshelf.
Yeah.
And in that room, based on the description, it looks like one of those, those big windows shaped like that.
Like what?
I saw one earlier while we were driving, but I couldn't point it to you.
Yeah.
You know how, like a half of a hexagon. You're
Okay.
making this so hard for me. She picked a book, and then she sat down on the window ledge comfortably, and then she kind of hid behind the you know how the curtains are in those big houses, very heavy. I described it so bad, but if you read the book, like, the description is very detailed and it's almost like poetry. So she proceeded to describe the book that she was reading, and she expresses how happy she was at that moment. She's always happy when she's with a book, and it's basically the only nice thing in her current life. She talked about Bewick.
Bewick.
Bewick, yeah. Bewick's History of British Birds. I googled it, and it was actually a real book.
Oh, actually.
Yeah. And as I scrolled through Google, I came across an article that says it was quite common for birds to be a topic in Victorian women's literature. So the article just said that it was within the limited scope of women's hobbies. To have birds as pets. They're not expected to work. They're expected to know how to dance, play music, to cook, all those domesticity. Apparently, it fits that image so well. And oh my gosh, I just remembered. So one of my favorite quotes from Jane Eyre is, "I am no bird and no net ensnares me." The quotes that stood out to me. And as I was reading this article, I just realized that that's where the bird symbolism came in, because as I mentioned, Jane Eyre is very big on feminism, and now I can see why she would hate to be compared to a caged bird.
Yeah.
Because for the whole story, she's just struggling to be, she just wanted to be free. She didn't want to align with people's expectations. So we're going too far into far into the middle of the story. Anyway, I stopped reading the article because it was too long. Going back to the story, so she was referencing Bewick's book quite extensively. She said that it was a picture book, so she was describing a lot of. Do you want to go? I don't want to go. Dada! She needs to go out. Going back, she was referencing Bewick's book quite extensively, and now I understand better that it was a huge symbolism and I guess foreshadowing for the whole book. She was so engrossed in the book so that you or me as the reader have the same false sense of calm before John Reed comes storming in. Do you remember John? So he's the cousin.
Yeah.
John is a very kind of like Dudley, I guess. Maybe worse. I feel like worse than Dudley. He calls her, "Oh, Madam Mope." John calls out for Jane, but since she was hiding behind the curtains, he couldn't see her. So he called out to his siblings saying,
"Joan's not here."
Joan's not even her name. He's so rude. So he told his sisters to tell their mom that she went out into the rain. And at this point, Jane already began to consider showing herself. But before she could come out, Eliza said that surely she must just be behind the curtains. And that's when Jane came out, before John drags her out. Jane was 10. John was 14.
Yeah.
And he was described as large and stout for his age, with dingy and unwholesome skin. Do you think that means acne?
Dingy and what?
Unwholesome.
Wholesome.
Unwholesome.
Oh, unwholesome, yeah.
You think maybe that's acne? That's how they describe it. So he reminds me of Dudley, because in this passage, Jane informed the readers that John has been out of school for a month or two with his mom's permission due to his delicate health. But in reality, there's nothing wrong with him. John was a constant bully to Jane at home for no apparent reason, and nobody does anything about it. The servants and the mom, of course, because he's the only male one. Obviously, like, the estate is gonna be passed on to him eventually. John, 14-year-old John, threw a punch to skinny little 10-year-old Jane for talking back to his mom, and for hiding behind the curtains, and for the way she looked at him. John was telling her she had no right using their books because she's dependent, she's poor, she ought to beg, she doesn't deserve to live with them or eat the same meals as them or wear the clothes that their money bought. Then he ordered her, Jane, to stand in the middle of the room away from the windows and the mirrors. And then he has the book.
Just gonna throw it.
He threw the book straight at her head. And then she said,
"The cut bled. The pain was sharp. My terror had passed its climax. Other feelings succeeded."
So in short, she snapped. And she said,
"Wicked and cruel boy! You are like a murderer. You are like a slave driver. You are like the Roman emperors."
she has clearly read some book about the history of Rome. And John couldn't believe his ears. He ran straight straight to her, grabbed her hair, grabbed her shoulder, and screamed, "Rat! Rat!" I didn't know that was an insult back then. So his sisters ran for their mother, and then their mother arrived along with Bessie and then another, I guess, maid, Abbott, and they pulled them apart. And then Mrs. Reed took her to the red room.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the chapter.
That was a quick chapter.
Yeah, that was a quick chapter. I guess the length of the chapter would really vary.
Yeah.
Depending on where the story is. Did you expect the story to be like this?
I feel like books from set around that, like a combination of someone being an orphan, then being on that time period, just
Going
doesn't
through life.
scream good stories, like happy stories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What do you think is the red room? Because it sounded ominous.
it's like a solitary room or something.
Yeah, kind of like maybe like a punishment room or some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think of the first chapter? Are you looking forward to knowing more about the...
Yeah, it was really quick.
Yeah, it was really fast. Yeah, it was really, really fast. So maybe we can do chapter 2 tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean it's the first chapter, so I can't really still like say too much.
Yeah, definitely. I love this book. It's really interesting because it's quite fast-paced the way the story moved from one stage of her life to another. Soon she's gonna be... I'm not gonna say any spoilers. It's gonna be all new for you. It's just gonna be like a refresher for me. And I actually liked, reading through the first chapter and then retelling you and then researching the articles that I don't finish.
Is she gonna be 50 years old in the next chapter?
Huh?
She's gonna be 50 on the next chapter.
No, not that fast. Yeah, you're gonna follow the developmental milestones. Alright, okay, thank you for listening to chapter 1. She's doing this.
Like and subscribe.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time.